Good morning,
So,
sir.
good morning, all. So, everyone
Gaurav
is
sir,
Yes.
sir,
Sir.
can I read the biography of this Tushar Pradhan sir? Already.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, all of you. Myself is Dr. Jagdish Patil, working as Assistant Professor of Agronomy at College of Agriculture, Kolhapur, under the Mahatma Phule Agri University. Okay. I am very happy because I am one of the part of this refresher course in disaster management, which is organized by UGC-MMTTC, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Matoda University, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar. Okay. Today, actually, this biodata reading is allotted to my one of the colleagues, Dr. Ravindra Karande, roll number 57. Due to his personal family problem, I am going to read the biodata of the Dr. Tushar Pradhan sir. Okay. Dr. Tushar Pradhan sir is, you can say that this is one of the disaster management man, which is born in 1981 and devoted his total life till today for a disaster management. Okay, this is one of the dynamic personality with us today. Already one lecture is delivered by the Tushar sir, and which is the start of our refresher course. Okay, the Tushar Pawar sir is a dynamic disaster risk takers and climate change professional with good work experience for more than 3.5 years in a disaster management risk. Regarding the education qualifications of the Tushar sir, academically, sir has completed BE in computer science, while he did his MSc in disaster management, and currently he is working as a disaster risk management and climate change professional, giving lectures on various topics related to the disaster management. Sir worked previously, sir worked in 4 organizations. As the Security Control Room India in Ditcher Bank India for PCS Technology Limited. Here, sir managed and various operations at Pan India 29 branches. With this, sir also worked as District Disaster Management Officer, at District Collector and Chairman of Aurangabad. Also, sir prepared a IEC material which was published by the Honorable Chief Secretary, Government of India at Monsoon Preparedness meeting. Again, sir worked at District Disaster Management Officer, District Collector and Chairman, District Disaster Management Authority, Hingoli. With this, sir prepared a village disaster management plans for 62 flood-prone villages. Also, sir prepared do's and don'ts for district-specific disasters. Sir didn't stop with his work. He has done various certification courses such as Module 4 for geohazards, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear emergencies, city disaster management plan, cities and climate change, disaster risk reduction in resilience infrastructure, etc. With this, sir has various achievements such as sir having a recipient of Government of India top class scholarship. Sir stood first for the course Diploma in Computer Programming and System Analysis. Sir designed, developed and executed IEC material in disaster for the Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar district, published by the Honorable Chief Secretary, Government of Maharashtra. Sir is also work as a resource person for UGC Academic Staff College, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Matoda University, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar till date. With this, sir has completed 6-week course on a Paris Agreement on Climate Change as an Development Agenda. Also, sir completed United Nations environmental programs such as Global Webinar Series, Environmental Sensitive Mapping for Oil Spill Preparedness and Response, Rapid Support for the COVID-19 related Waste Management, etc. Also, sir worked for the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, Breaking the Barriers, Responsible Science Communication for Evidence-Based Decision Making, again waste management to water economy, tsunami ready, knowledge management for resilience, science, English, technology and innovations, etc. With this, sir worked with various organizations such as United Nations System Staff College, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organizations, National Institute of Disaster Management, etc. With this, sir has also various trainings such as geospatial application in disaster risk management, participation of environment disaster risk reduction training, carbon market training, etc. With this, sir, I attended various conference and training also. Okay, Sir also conducted various training in a Tahsil office of Python, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, State Reserve Police Force, Satara, Parisar, then Cell Tax Department, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, UGC academic staff, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, District Home Guard Training Center, Padegaon Road, Parbhani, etc. Again, sir completed one technical course of MOOC, Machine Learning in Weather and Climate. Also, sir has international publication on manifestation for the Just City. Okay, with this, sir has exposed the national and internationally many times as regard to the training, webinar, conference, and workshop. I heartily welcome to Tushar Pradhan sir for their valuable guidance in this refresher course. Thanks to all. Thank you.
Thank you for the lovely introduction. As really pointed out correctly, that I have a multidisciplinary background, and I hope that you people get the knowledge you require. As we start off with the basics, now we are into like the more concrete part. So today I will be teaching you to two important subjects. One is focused on the international agreement, that is the Sindhi Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, and possibly the Disaster Management Act 2005 of India. How these frameworks actually governs our system, and how we manage disaster management in our country from the international perspective, international laws, as well as the national laws. So today we will be discussing more concrete part on how government works and how government is mandated to do enact on disaster management. So I will be sharing my PPT for Sendai framework. Initially, we look at the first part. So let me share. Okay. Yeah. So are you able to see? I just need a confirmation. Is the PPT like I've shared it in a PDF format so that this format actually supports. So are you able to see this frame? I just need a confirmation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So thanks a lot. So today we will be talking about this international framework called Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. It is the core of like the Disaster Management Act. Before that, from 1990 to 1999, a 10-year period, a decade was actually declared as a decade for international disaster management, and this decade was actually emphasized for the well-being of people and then understanding the impacts of disasters on society. Then came the Hugo framework for action, which actually designed certain goals and certain structures so that this can be taken forward. And now this Hugo framework was subsequently being followed by this Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. So basically, this is an international framework where all countries were actually given an opportunity to create their own disaster management framework, create their own governance structure, and prioritize things so that they collectively manage disasters at the national level, at the regional level. Can I unmute?
Excuse
Excuse
me. अभी जो गए ना लड़कियां सच में सारा हमको बहुत बुरा लगा प्लीज म्यूट योर और जॉब भी मत बोले देखने के लिए हम लोग ऐसे जाते थे ना बच्चे जैसा कह रहे थे जॉब भी मत बोले अपना नाम खराब करेंगे बोलेंगे और उन्हें इतनी बात करके बोल के सर उनसे बात नहीं करनी वाली रोल नंबर 60 पर प्लीज म्यूट योर माइक हाँ और उन्हें ये बात समझते ही हाँ
Hello. Yeah. Is the participant muted? Requesting to mute actually when presentation is going on. Kindly mute the your mic so that I can continue it. Okay. So let's start off. So Sendai framework is an international framework which talks about disasters, and it just a second. Yeah. So next one. So looking at it, just a second. So actually, this is an international framework which is actually focusing on disaster management. It was adopted in 8 March 2015 at the World Conference for Disasters at Sendai. And initially, it's set up with all the nations as a framework and a roadmap to tackling disasters. After 3 months, it was actually endorsed by the United Nations General Assembly, so that adopting it and endorsing it would help every country to cope up with disaster. What its main aim was to achieve: reduce disaster risk, reduce loss of life, reduce loss of livelihoods, and damage to property, and also in terms of social, economical, and environmental impact and cultural impact, try to minimize this loss. And this aim was actually for a 15-year period. In a calculated way, for 15 years, all countries will develop these frameworks accordingly and structure their development towards reducing disaster risk. Not just reducing disaster risk, but also the existing risk and also the future occurring risk. So this framework was actually aimed to target disasters and manage them at the own structural country-wise specific levels, at the country level, at the national level, at the regional level, that is the state level, and then the district level, and then the village level. So actually, it laid down a framework wherein every country needs to prepare well for disaster management and to be a part of this process. So what are the things? What it prioritized? It actually prioritized 4 actions. Disaster man. It's this framework actually talks about, firstly, where to start from to prepare an action plan, where we start to understand what are disaster risks. Then to handle this disaster risk, we need to have a risk governance system. That is, we know how the structure works, but to execute that structure, we need a policy plan of implementation. So the 4 key priorities it prioritized was to firstly understand the various disaster risks which a country faces, based on its own geographic location, based on its own challenges, based on its own climatic conditions, and also the based on own geographic location. Then comes the understanding of the risk governance. So, and to manage this risk, how governance means the government machineries, the public sector, the private sector, the academia, and everyone, the all stakeholder, how they will react to this, that needs to be understood, and this governance structure needs to be changed. Because once you handle a disaster, there is a way to actually do it so that you not just only learn from the past disaster hazards impact, but also try to minimize it. I would give an example of a super cyclone, Odisha's 1999, wherein it hit Orissa in the 1999. More than 10,000 people lost their life. So after that, the government of India taken an initiative to focus on cyclone early warning system, and develop. And till date, actually, we have now developed, and we have gone through so many developmental phase that now we are fully prepared with cyclone early warning system. So when the cyclone Haiyan was about to fall in India, a government of India was able to predict it, give an early warning system, and also save more than 2 lakh to 3 lakh people by evacuating these people within a period of like 4 days to safe locations. So there was no loss of life in this kind of cyclone system, hazard impact. So my point here is to explain that once we start initiative some program, the governance also need to learn from those challenges, what they face. Like whatever disaster happens, after that we prepare a plan of action so that we are learning from those hazards and trying to minimize the loss. So this is the way we have to move forward. So the governance part is to be understood, and the risk governance, when you talk, as I focused in the first lecture, it's not about disaster. We are focusing on the risk, trying to reduce it so that it reduces the impact of loss of life, damage and property damage, and we try to reduce. The third priority is to invest in disaster risk management. When why we are focusing on this? Because $1 invested post disaster preparation in any hazard mitigation, means any hazard or disaster impact, it saves you the $4 post disaster assessment which is required. So if we invest in disaster management freehand, like in pre-disaster phase, we prepare an emergency plan, we prepare people's mentality, prepare themselves to tackle different hazards through different technical trainings and imparting knowledge that builds their resilience. Once that resilience is built, they are able to face it in more confident way, so that it actually minimizes the loss, the post disaster, the assistance that is required, that can be reduced. So this framework actually focuses on encouraging countries to focus on risk reduction, investing in disaster risk reduction, so that resilience is built. And once resilience is built of these people, means those who face it, it's actually minimizing a loss, livelihood, and also getting back to the norm. The fourth priority is to enhance disaster preparedness. As I talk, like, this, I'm giving one lecture to you, I'm trying to inform you about what are the various aspects of disaster management. This is actually one way of, preparing yourself to this. And by preparing, you're just not just only gaining that knowledge, but also gaining that necessary technical know-how, so that in future you are able to apply it. Like, for example, if you go through an earthquake, what you will do? Earthquake doesn't kill people, but the infrastructure which humans created, and when they fall, because of that, loss of life happens. So what we can do, we can learn, like, drop, cover, and hold, try to move to the safer location. These are the things which we need to know. And if that information is with you, you are able to not just only save your life, but also the others' life. So transcending that knowledge to the last mile also helps in it. So when we say that the fourth part is the, investing in preparedness. Preparedness means all about knowing the new things, understanding what's new and what can be adapted, and building your resilience in the longer term. So when we say, once a hazard or disaster strikes, and when it impacts people are in a better position to come back to normalcy, provided they are freehand, being prepared well, with good knowledge and good resources and access to resources, and they have the assets to face this. So this is what, these are the four priorities of actions for the international framework which suggested. So actually, this framework is a roadmap for preparing for disaster management in all countries. Then let's understand this priority one by one, because this framework actually is not just for restricting to one particular country, but for entire region. And when we say that disaster management is not a one subject of one country or one nation or one state or one district or one village issue, but it is actually transboundary. When it happens with a wide range of, like, take a earthquake, it happens with a huge geographical location. So there is no, they don't differentiate in occurring. So impact also will be, quite huge. So to prioritize this, firstly we need to try to understand the disaster risk which we have, and how we will move forward for this disaster management. So firstly, where we live, we need to understand a SWOT analysis, as I told in the previous lecture, like, strength, weakness, opportunity, challenges. So every district, every place needs to understand its own particular challenges, in terms of what hazard it faces, in terms of what resources it has, and what can be channelized in time of crisis, and in what way it can be able to manage if certain things goes beyond its. So understanding risk is the key part, and also understanding what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what are the challenges, so that we are able to prepare a good emergency plan, trying to find hotspots, places where past disaster occur and where loss of lives have been more. So how we can reduce it by, trying to redress those challenges which we identified based on past past disasters. So learning from past disasters also is crucial in making this plan. Then the knowledge should be focused on pre-disaster risk assessment. Like, as I told, like, $1 invested pre-hazard or disaster preparedness, it saves you the post $5 in disaster assistance. So once we do this aspect, it's important that we realize that we are not just having knowledge, but using that knowledge to build our resilience in the long term and being more effective for disaster management. Then periodically also, it's not just, and as I said, disaster management is not a one-time activity, as that you have prepared a plan, you have done this. No, it is not a static plan, it is a dynamic plan. It needs to be reworked on, it needs to be reassessed, it needs to be continuously check for new challenges, because that's how disaster management will help you grow not just to face the existing problem, but new problem which can occur. Like take an example of COVID, which happened, but nobody knew it. But once it knew, it's propagated. WHO used to pull out a lot of safety bulletins so that it make information available to everyone to know, understand, and they used to disseminate authentic information, what experts says, what are the things to be done. So this is what actually in the lead way we need to tackle any hazard. So to understand this, disaster risk is to be understood in a whole totality and in a holistic way, using technological aid, like the latest advancement. Man, kindly mute yourself. So then when once this aspect of hello hello kindly unmute yourself, mute yourself.
अरे यार सगळ्यांनी आपली माइक म्यूट ठेवा प्लीज.
So when we say understanding risk, it's a whole gamut of risk which we are talking about, and also able to promoting real-time access of data. Now, why data? When we say a disaster happens, so we have a golden hours. Whatever, it might be an accident, it might be a huge earthquake, it might be a flood and everything. But if you are able to capitalize these golden hours, you can save people's life, property, and to some extent, this actually helps. But how it is to be done? So using by aiding new technology like GIS maps are the ones we can use, satellite data, we can use the drone system, the technology which we have in hand. We are able to provide early warnings to people and try to save their life. So understanding risk and making this first priority concrete, it sets the base for any disaster management plan to act on. So this framework, Sindai framework, talks about making your base stronger. So once the foundation is stronger, on that you can develop much more better management thing. So then the second priority comes in. So once you know that what are the disaster you face, what are the geographic locations challenges you have, then you need to move to the governance, because managing risk is what is important. Having a governance structure, having a government in a way, structured way, it follows certain norms. But new things, new dynamic challenges require new knowledge. So our government system, our officials, our different department needs to make themselves aware of what they can do, facilitate better in managing these kind of hazards or disasters. So this is important while managing this. So when we talk of strengthening this disaster governance, it's all about having a horizontal as well as vertical coordination among different departments, different stakeholders, different sectors, different entities and stakeholders like the private sector, the academia, the people, the public at large, and everyone. So involvement of everyone is important, and also not just having that, but also having the knowledge to propagate it to the long run. So when we say there are clear vision, sir, kindly mute all the other participants, please.
त्याच्यानंतर त्यांनी नाश्ता सांगितला होता 5,880, तो काय होत नाही, 4,980 कमी झाले. तर 500 जाते बिल ते चालत नाही म्हणून 4,980 हे दोन झाले.
Mute yourself when presentation goes on, please.
एक झालं,
नंबर 66
बरोबर. आता त्यांना बघा,
roll number 60, kindly mute yourself, and I request all the participants.
1800 दिले ना, ते चालणार नाही. हा तेच मला
Roll number 66, kindly mute yourself. Actually, I just need to complete presentation.
विचारा मैं उधर इधर आए 2 मिनट देता हूँ.
जाधवर सर म्यूट करा स्वतःला.
Kindly, I request, like the host, kindly mute others because I can continue with this.
तुम्हाला मामांना तिला आणलं बी नाही किती पाहिजे सरांनी सांगितले नाश्त्याचे 980 टाका त्यामुळे मग ते करतो अजून
पण तुम्ही एक तासच सुट आहे ना
हा ते आहे
संध्याकाळी सुरू करा सर
हे नाश्ता हे झालं इथं पात्र असते तिथे एक वेळ दिवस तुम्हाला एक अजून पात्र असते हा ते बी लावूया त्यांना विचारून लावाय मी ठेवलंय प्लॅन टोटल मारू आपण सगळं हे करून आणि मग करू हा ही सगळ्यांची टोटल मारू
Is it mute now? Shall I start? So,
Yes, sir.
yeah. So I request all the participants to kindly mute the mic because I can't then teach you, like there is a rhythm I need to follow, and then if I break it is difficult for others also. So kindly don't disturb others and kindly mute yourself as the presentation goes. Then later on when you want to ask the question you can unmute. Okay. So when we talk of like the second priority of action for disaster risk management is risk governance. So it's crucial that we need to have clear vision, clear plans, competence. Also, we have to have clear guidance, coordination among different actors, and develop this through collective and holistic management. So where involvement of all stakeholders is essential. It is crucial for the collaboration from horizontal, vertical needs to be clearly defined, understood, and involvement of all the people needs to be there. And also mainstreaming integrated disaster risk reduction into cross-sector actually further enhances with effective coherence, development of plans and the national sub plans, and dividing the main plan like a national plan to be state plan, from state to the regional plan, regional to state plan, and state to district plan, and from district to village level plan. So this is how actually we are trying to divide that aspects of governance into small chunks and laying down rules and responsibilities of all the different stakeholders and trying to come up with an action plan. Then the third priority which this document, the international document, which says is that we need to not just only to have information about disaster, but also have a governance, risk governance, but also now we need to invest in disaster risk management. Investing means what? We need to actually applying our thoughts and processes towards risk reduction, so that we just not just only create new hazards or new risks, but we try to reduce it. We try to reduce the existing risk, but also trying to mitigate the new risk which can be coming through a collective and relentless action. So preparedness. So how it is to be done? It's to be done through public-private investment, by collaborations, like by public sector and private sector can come together to collaborate for early warning system. Suppose a private entity works at a particular remote location, it can be a part of this disaster management process and try to help out people nearby in collaboration with the government. So this is how one way of doing it. Then there could be also be different innovations can be added, wherein there are different stakeholders coming together. As like I would give you example when I working with the government in Aurangabad as a disaster management. We have a mutual aid and response group where industries were there, they had the technical expertise, so we became the part of this mutual aid and response, and we used to try to disseminate the information. So one good example of this illustration, partnership was that there was one oil tanker spilled at Jalna, and they didn't know how to resolve it. So they called me, and we actually assisted through our mutual aid and response group expert, and he actually provided a solution, what can be done and what action should be taken, so that if particular what was the chemical was there and how the people needs to actually make themselves safe. So this is how these innovative partnerships actually helps in collaborating with not just saving our own specific area, but we also can help out with different geographic locations. If you have that collaboration, it could be also more effective in saving life, preventing loss of big property damage, and being cost effective. But there are ways of doing it. Like there are structural ways and non-structural. Structural ways are those which are physical. Like if we have there are flood prone areas, we can also have an embankment. We have a structural outlay, infrastructure financial outlay, so that we build and it safeguards people. But also non-structural measures wherein promoting incentivizing things like people giving them an option for insurance, so that if something lost due to hazard, they are able to get back at least some financial help, so that for them post disaster they can get back to it. So there are different ways of doing it, but investing in disaster is important, not just only from district and village point of view level, but at the city level everybody needs to aware. And if we invest today, is said that the more you sweat during the peace time, the less you bleed during the war time. So it's just like that. So if you are preparing well before a disaster or a hazard strike, you are making yourself more resilient and are able to get back to normalcy at the earliest. The fourth priority actually talks about preparedness in a whole manner, wherein you are not just getting back to normal, but building back much better. Like, you are not getting to the old form, wherein the old form was not able to face disaster, because of that only the damage happened. But once you get back, we are also trying to address the root causes which caused it, so that the impact and the loss damage which happened, that can be minimized. And how it is to be taken? By anticipating action. Like, disaster management is about proactiveness, not reactiveness. Like, something happens, some hazard and destruction happens, and you are trying to react to it. No, it shouldn't be like that. Beforehand, if you prepare well, if you trained well, if you assess things, you have a necessary coordination, collaboration among different entities, you are able to face it with all the confidence. And this is called the proactiveness, that is essential for getting build back better. And also, how we will prepare? We prepare early warning system. Like after tsunami 2024 Indian Ocean, there was an early warning system, tsunami early warning system set up by IMD, Indian Meteorological Department, specifically to issue early warnings, where satellite data information was used to provide early warnings to all the coastal regions of India, and making them prepare. It's just not just providing early warning is important, but also people enacting on early warning and taking appropriate actions. So for that, these local coastal peoples were given training in different aspects of like training, like rescue, response, relief, and making not just safe themselves, but also helping out others. So this is where that propagation of preparedness needs to be done, and being more effective when involvement of all the stakeholders who are going to be sufferers of that particular hazard, they are being involved. So that's how this, like, empowering the most vulnerable group. Like after the coastal tsunami of 2024, the coastal cities or the village women were actually trained in a lot of like rescue, response, relief, so that they were able to understand, like, after such warnings being issued, what should be the plan of action, what they should do, how they need to save themselves, but also to others, taking care of all the vulnerables also, including the children, the age old, physical challenge, the ill. So this is how empowerment actually helps. It is also being observed that the effects of spending these post disaster phase work out to be most prevailing in pre-disaster phase, wherein pre-disaster actions which we take, like prevention, preparedness, and mitigation, it actually builds the resilience and it can sustain a long way. So this is how the fourth priority actually focused to get back at the earliest. But when it happens, when you are empowered well, when the community which is going to face it is well groomed and well prepared to take face the challenge. This could be by like reviewing their own plans, reviewing their own mistakes, and then coming up with their own plan of action. Like in a village who faces flood can prepare well by preparing an strong contingency plan. In that, they define roles, responsibility of who will doing what and in what way. Like suppose they need to evacuate to a place, safer place. So pre-hand they identify those places, and also facilitating that place, so that when such a certain thing happens, they are able to evacuate but also survive within a comfortable way. So this is kind of these are the four priorities of action which this international framework talked about. Now every stakeholder in this action plan has a role to play. Every stakeholder has a responsibility to doing some action. So how it is been done? So states that have overall responsibility for DRR, like in our case in India, we have the national government, the state government, the district government, and then the local body. So in our case, state has the more responsibility. So countries have the more responsibility. This framework talk about you should actually club this roles and responsibility as per your governance structure, and make appropriate government departments responsible for doing those actions and then carrying out those actions. It should have been between the government and the relevant stakeholders. Non-state actors act as an enabler, because like stakeholders, like though the responsibility rests mostly with the government, but there are other people's involvement is essential, like academia, like we are discussing, and I am imparting you the knowledge. That means academia is actually informing, you are getting informed and you're trying to inform. Now you will pass on this information to students, your students. So this is how one way of empowering them. Then continued goodwill and keeping experience and resources at hand. And what we do is, it's important that involvement of everyone is essential, like self-help organizations, women's group, the youth group. And actually, if we have a pre-hand collaboration with these, then when a disaster or hazard strike, we are in a better position to react to it in a more swift and efficient way. And this being more pragmatic approach rather than having a reactive approach, more pragmatic. And when we say the involvement of everyone, few of the actors, like the private sector, is better in that, in some aspect. Like the example which I gave there, when gas leak happened by oil tanker in Jalna, that was a act which happened by a private entity. But to help out our private sector, that mutual aid and response group provided them the key information how to tackle it, because the government machineries or the people who were governing, they were not knowing the technical know-how. So this is how the innovation happens, and the partnership actually helps you to resolve certain different challenges. So this is how we need to move ahead. Then not just restricting ourselves towards our own geographic location, but also international cooperation. Like once chemical spill happen, mostly, so we require a technical know-how to how to tackle it. So here, international aid, international organization who are more efficient and more critical in handling it, we can sort their help. And in the best time, if we have, as I told, like there are golden hours which we capitalize. If that has been capitalized, the destruction and harm which can happen can be reduced. And this is how collaboration actually helps. So international collaboration and partnership is essential. What they are doing in a better way is to understand, and this actually partnership helps in building it more resilient. And also there is a technological transfer that can happen from them to us, so that we are able to know what are the new things that can be done at our own stake. If we don't have the necessary technical skills, we can train people, we can build the resilience, and then we can actually not just empower ourselves but also the neighboring countries. So this is important. And here what happened is, developed countries who have developed these important aspects needs to be transferring that technical know-how to the developing states or the small island countries or the poor countries, so that they can empower them. So this actually plan of action, the Sendai framework, actually encourages everyone to collaborate, cooperate, and move in a more collective and holistic way. So international cooperation is it should be genuine and durable, so that the partnership which has happened, it actually reduces the vulnerability of the nations and also helps them to come out to face future challenges. And it is important to reducing disaster risks and helping out neighbors, so that in the long run, we are not just building our resilience but also building the resilience of others. So now how it is to be done, now how the means of implementation. So this international framework also talks about how it should be done and executed at all levels. So developing countries need enhanced provision of a combination of the sustained and adequate international support for DRR. So when we say, like there are technical trainings which happen, they need to actually translate it into simplified things and small knowledge chunks, so that they can actually impart those countries, those institutions which haven't been proficient, and building their strength. Like the developed country actually helping an African country to set up one early warning system is one way of, like this means of implementation. Like as Antonio Guterres said of United Nations, that we can actually, by providing early warning, we can save at least 30% of life if it is being provided one day early. So it's important that if that is being developed, the loss of life can be reduced through good collective actions, and where regional cooperation is essential, regional, local, national, and international. So this actually being in tandem and in hand, so that this goes a long way. Then there need to be an enhanced access to all the stakeholders, and not just having a partnership is important. The partnership and collaboration should be there for financial help, also for technical help, also for the technological know-hows and innovations. So whatever good practices they have, if that can be translated and provided to the poor nation, they are in a better position to implement it and able to face it, both during the hazard, during peacetime, and if they calibrate this, the time which they have for providing this, then when actually it happens, the people who face, the countries which face such hazard, they are able to cope with it with their own resources and with their own uh, know-how. But when it happens there, this collaboration actually is fruitful. So promoting the use of the, just a second. So sorry. So implementing DRR measures into a bilateral and multilateral development assistance program is also important. Like, countries helping one another, countries helping 2 or 3 countries coming together and having a bilateral agreement. So this actually also helps in countries helping out one another, but also promoting an resilience building way of enacting for disasters. So, and also this program can be linked to the sustainable development, wherein it actually try to solve the multiple issues at one go, and in that way we are not just enhancing work in one area, but also it is actually extrapolating into different agendas, also the international agenda. So this is how the means of implementation was focused on. So when we say, now the entire core of this chart I would explain you is that it has actually the scope and purpose, the expected outcomes, the goal, why it is being done, the 7 targets, and what are the priorities of action, that 4 priorities which we discussed. So these priorities actually are the 4 areas wherein it is the international level, national level, state level, and the district level, and everything needs to be in a tandem, and that's how we are able to resolve these challenges for this framework talks about. So when we talk of scope, what we are talking is about applying this to small scale hazard or large scale hazard, slow onset disaster or sudden onset disaster. So this to minimize hazard and reduce the impacts on environment, technology, biological hazard, and trying to reduce its impact so that people are in a better position to come back to normalcy and resilience. And what is outcome is to actually is to reduce disasters and its impact and loss of lives, livelihood, and also reduce the economic, physical, social, cultural, and environmental loss to the individual, the community, and the business, as well as the country. The goal is to prevent new hazard to occur, new risk to occur, and also reducing existing risk, so that we are in a better position to govern our system and make our system more resilient towards facing such disasters. And this goal actually is held by, there are 7 targets, where the 4 targets talk about reducing things and the 3 targets talks about increasing things. What are the 4 things? The 4 things which it talks about reducing is to reduce mortality, the death rate, then reducing the number of affected people by 2030, then reducing the number of financial losses which a country faces, that needs to be reduced. That was one target. The 4th target is to reduce the impact on critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure is about like the health, hospitals, schools, that needs to be safeguarded, because when these are called as developmental goals, but if they are lost during a hazard, flood, earthquake happens, and there is a destruction of hospitals, schools, and everything, so these are critical infrastructure. If they are lost, it is very difficult. So to safeguard that also we need to have, so to reduce their impact, reduce the impact of destruction by disaster to this critical infrastructure, that has to be reduced. These are the 4 priorities that needs to be reduced. But what 3 things that needs to be increased? The first thing that needs to be increased is, so every government should have an own disaster risk management plans, risk reduction strategies. That is the act and plan. For in case of India, we have the Disaster Management Act, which talks about a legal framework, rules, responsibility defined by the entire government structure, and how we will able to manage. So that is one part. Then again, the second thing that needs to be increased is to enhance international cooperation. As I told, as we talked about, that needs to be means of implementation wherein help of other countries are. So most of the developed nations like India has a collaboration with GIZ, so they can collaborate and to provide a lot of technical know-hows in terms of hazard management and risk, and also in climate change they actually help. So they like collaborating with others, the other countries, what that technical know-hows, and using their information in our management of hazard and risk. This is what is important. So that increasing this collaboration. And the fourth part is that substantially reducing the availability, means substantially increasing the availability of multi-hazard early warning system. So when multi-hazard early warning system is being implemented, it actually saves a lot of life. It's not just one particular disaster, one particular hazard you face, but if there are multiple risks that involve, and there are cascading and compounding disasters which can happen and strike. So if we have a proper knowledge about this, and if this can be done, as I told, like early warning can save 30% of life, as per the Antonio Guterres, UN Secretary General. So that is important, and once we increase that, this actually will happen. And then there are the four priorities action which we discussed. That is the firstly understanding the risk, understanding increasing the disaster risk governance to manage this risk, and thirdly investing in disaster risk reduction, and fourthly reducing and preparing yourself in the long run so that it builds back better in terms of recovery, rehabilitation. So these are the guiding principles, and how we will going to achieve it. So engaging all of society, everybody needs to be involved, protecting the person and the assets, and protecting human, including the lives of the people who face hazard, sharing responsibility between the government and the private sector, and helping and having a mutual collaboration between different entities and stakeholders, and the prime responsibility which but they need to be also having this horizontal and vertical collaboration among different entities. Also, the coherence of disaster risk reduction and sustainable development policy plans practices is not just having policy plans, but also reviewing those policies and plans whether they are actually addressing these challenges or not, and in what way they are able to redress it in the long run. So this needs to be done. Then also having an accounting, like financial outlay for developing this plan. Kindly mute yourself. Kindly mute yourself. Yeah. So basically, when we talk of like the guiding principles, we also talk about building back better for preventing the creation of new risks and reducing the existing risk, addressing underlying risk factors which cost effectively through investment versus relying on permanently post-disaster recovery. When a disaster strike, mostly more we talk about the financial aid, and we seek aid from World Bank, the Asian Development Bank. But beforehand, if we have developed a good disaster risk management framework, we need not to apply for the big loans to these organizations. We can prepare well, and we can have our own plan of action by having a dedicated service. Like from Disaster Management Act of India's point of view, we developed two funds: disaster mitigation fund and disaster adaptation fund. These funds are used for specific purposes to address the challenges, and we need not require a special different funds or deviation of funds from the other sector to redress it. So beforehand, the pre-planning is essential, and this is how this Sindhi framework is worked and worked on. And the quality of global partnership and international cooperation to be effective and meaningful and strong. And when we say why we require international partnership and collaboration, because knowledge sharing is important, also resources as well as the technical know-how is important. So this is a continued way, and this framework actually talks about building your structure and involving everyone towards disaster risk reduction. So this is what this and the framework was about. And I suppose this was the last slide. So if you have any questions, can let me know. Anyone having a question? Am I audible? Yeah. So anyone having questions? So this is actually the Sendai framework which I took today, and this framework actually, and talking about this framework, 2015 was the year where it was actually being initiated, 2015 to 2030, and this 2025 is the global stock take. So in global stock take means आढावा घेणे, म्हणजे assess what plan was set up and what we achieved. त्याच्यात त्यांना असं आढळलं की हे झाल्यानंतर, like after completing so halfway mark, the goal one, like priority of action, risk identified was correct. Then also prepare, most of the governments had their own disaster management strategy now in place with 90% achievement. So that was the positive sign, but still most aspects that were lagging, that will be fulfilling. But overall, the success of this Sendai framework goes a long way, where every country is now having a disaster management plan strategies, also having dedicated financial outlays, dedicated funds to resolve it, so that they are in a better position to cope up with these challenges and also to face it in the near future. But also there are like multiple early warning system partnerships among different nations, different regions, different continents, so that in terms of like for after tsunami, there is a international organization which said gives an early warning for tsunami, also all continent wise. So the sharing of knowledge which is going on right now is very at its peak, and also utilizing the satellite information using the GIS and remote sensing. So now the accuracy level of early warning has also gone high, and due to the technical advancement of mobile and all the satellite communication, it is actually well versed and well going beyond its reach. So now most of the people are under the coverage of early warning systems, and the more people are, then the less there is a loss of livelihood, because information is key. If you are able to provide information at the right time, at the right people will take constructive, effective actions to not just save themselves but for others. So this is how this framework actually culminated. So any questions any students have? Any questions? So now actually I will be, any questions anyone have? So now I will share one other presentation, which is actually an SOP, which is so shall I small presentation, and then we will start off with the Disaster Management Act. Yeah. Okay, now actually I will the second presentation. So Disaster Management Act. Yeah. So as you have seen, like the first presentation was about the international agreement and the framework for disaster management. Now, based on that, and the first part of that which you talked about was the Disaster Management Act. So India actually has a law for specifically for disaster management in 2005. It actually initiated this law to build a framework for applying and managing disasters in India. So Disaster Management Act was, its intention was for every government entity, how it will be managing, how the nation has a mandate towards disaster management, how it will govern, how various stakeholders will respond to disaster management, and how this framework will help towards everyone. So now, why this Disaster Management Act and what it is aimed at? It's all about prevention and mitigation. So rather than taking, like as I said, like we shifted from an reactive mentality towards a proactive mentality. So we focused on, rather than disaster management, post disaster management, we focused on pre disaster preparedness and focusing on prevention and mitigation. Because as I said, like $1 invested in prevention, preparedness and mitigation, it saves your $5 post disaster assistance. So this is actually proven fact, and World Disaster Report actually quantified it. So based on this principle, in Government of India enacted this act. And why for it? Firstly, to take a holistic approach towards disaster management, build a coordination aspect of all the entities, including the government, non-government, all the stakeholders, including the common man and the most affected one, and also to provide a prompt response. This Disaster Management Act was focused on. Then it also to provide requisite institutional mechanism, because previously there was no structure as such to managing a disaster. So this Disaster Management Act provided an opportunity to build a structure, a framework in a more concrete way, so that it actually helps you to resolve this challenge and ensures measures by the various wings of the government are in tandem and coherence with disaster management. So this act actually is about managing risk at all levels. So what it does? So the definition of disaster management in Disaster Management Act is, it's a catastrophe, a mishap, a calamity out of grave occurrence arising in an area due to natural or human induced causes or accidents or negligence, but it results in substantial loss of life, human sufferings, damage and destruction to property and damage and degradation of environment, and is such and what magnitude or a magnitude to be beyond the coping capacity of the community. So this is a standard definition which this act actually defines, and it also defines the roles and responsibilities of all the government entities, who is responsible to what and what action needs to be taken at the different levels that of governance. So now understand this structure of NDMA. We know at the national level we have the NDMA, that is the National Disaster Management Authority, which is chairman by the Prime Minister, and it has all the authority to set the policy, framework and rules, regulations for disaster management. It is supported by NEC, that is the National Executive Council Committee, which is headed by the Chief Secretary, which actually looks after what are the policies made by NDMA. It just analyzes and it actually executes it, and it can be considered as the execution arm of this NDMA. And it has having all the powers being given and all the rules and regulations to be made, so that they are fully capacitated to take all the necessary actions for resolving and responding. Similarly, at the national, after the national level, we have the state level, wherein state chief minister are the chairman of the SDMA, that is the State Disaster Management Authority. They are also supported by SEC, that is State Chief Executive Committee, headed by the Chief Secretary, and also this team is being supported by all the chief secretaries of the various departments, so that they are able to manage the disasters at their level in best possible way. So after the state, then we have the smallest level of governance, that is at the district level. The district level, we have the District Disaster Management Authority, which is headed by the district collector and the magistrate, who is the chairman, and he is assisted by the different set of departments, and in facilitating and taking actions, he is being given the power, execution powers in his capacity to take action. This powerful law actually capacitates the district collectors to take all the necessary actions in his capacity, to requisition vehicles, to take all the necessary measures, which, and for that he is given the power. Dr. Jai, please mute yourself. Dr. Jai, please mute yourself. Yeah. So the thing is, now after discussing, like, the district disaster management authority headed by the district collector, actually he is given all the power, executionary power, to take all the necessary actions to avert disaster. Like in the last tsunami, and I discussed the uh, Nagapattinam case study, wherein the collector was given all the powers to do in his capacity to respond. So this act actually provided this opportunity to they do them and take all the necessary action. So this structure, this triple structure, but beyond this structure, there is also at the local level where the municipal corporation has its own authority to enact. Then also the local bodies, local governing councils, they have the own. And beyond this, there is a level of taluka village disaster management authority, which is being given the power, which is headed by the tehsildar. Then beyond the tehsildar, we have all the taluka officials, and then also spreading it from taluka level to the village level. So this is how the structure actually works on. And these are small units of governance which are actually managing the disaster, and they are being empowered through this act. So now, so as I discussed, the NDMA is the highest epic of like this Disaster Management Act, the National Disaster Management, and which is being supported by the NEC, the National Executive Committee, execution arm of this NDMA. And whatever policies, frameworks being laid down by the NDMA, NEC actually executes it and looks into the matter that it is being executed in a proper way. Then prepare, what NDA does is prepare a national plan for a whole country and update it annually. As such, like disaster management, not a one-time activity. It is a continuous activity, and it is not static. It is dynamic, keep on changing. So you have to reassess, you have to come back. You made a plan, you again have to check what went wrong, what went not, what are the new things that can be added, so you have to reassess things. So the periodic updation of this plan is important for disaster management plan. So every state, every district, every village has these plans, and that needs to be managed. That's what this act actually mandates to do. An act is to, and also it has an important element of coordination and cooperation and monitoring among different government entities, not just within among them government, but also the private sector, the academia, the common public, and the public at large, and all the stakeholders. So this needs to be, so that in time of crisis, clear information is propagated to all the parties, all the stakeholders are in tandem with this information, and clear information actually helps to resolve matters and manage. So coordination and management is implemented at the national policy, and the national policy actually has this framework of who will do what and in what way it will be executed. The laid down rules for preparing the disaster management plan by ministries and departments. So is not just having an state plan or village plan or district plan, but also every ministry will have its own disaster management plan, that how they are going to manage if things happen, and how they will be providing necessary management people in times of crisis, and how they will they have nodal officers during time of crisis. These nominated officers will help out in certain management of disaster. So that is also one part of this NDM. Then evaluating the preparedness plans of all governments, as is the apex body, National Disaster Management Authority. What it does is it will inform and collect all the disaster management plan of the states, which they prepare as per their own geographic location, the challenge they face, and it actually reviews it, looks into what can be better, and also provide a financial outlay based on this, so that it can run programs for disaster risk mitigation and management. I was part of one of the program, that is Maharashtra Disaster Risk Management Project, wherein I was entrusted with the responsibility of preparing a district disaster management plan, also carrying out capacity building and training programs, awareness generation programs under the head, and also trying to identify the different disasters which is district has, and making sure that there is a clear collaboration and coordination among different set of government entities and private entities, and who can help us during crisis, like the NGOs, community-based organization, youth organization, and having a coordinating committee of these during crisis actually helps to minimize the chaos, and also clear information can be distributed among different stakeholders, and efficient management of disaster can happen. So this actually is the role of NDM, and it also advises and assists and coordinate with active ministries and departments of the government and all the authorities, so that there is a cohesive and collaborative approach among different set of entities at all levels. There is no confusion, no chaos, nothing. And it promotes education awareness of related disaster management. So what NDMA does is it from time to time it builds it issues guidelines, notifications to all the states in preparing what, it prepares the SOP, standard operating procedures, for different types of disasters like chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, that CBR and emergencies, then floods, then earthquakes, cyclones. Different disasters have different methods and ways of enacting and management. So what NDMA does is it lay down its policies and frameworks that this is the way we are trying to deal, and this is the way our country is mandated to work on it. Then based on this national guideline, state also prepare their own guideline, looking through the national guidelines, and state prepare their own plans, and then based on this state plan, every district of that state prepares the plan based on these two, the national as well as the state guidelines. So this is the way actually the implementation of the plan goes. Then the additional functions of DDMA is now, as I talk, like the national level we have the NDMA, the state level is the SDMA. Now we talk about the district level, that is the DDMA, district disaster management authority. So as a part of district, every city, every district, like we have more than 600 districts in India. Every district has a DDMA, district disaster management authority, where the chairman of this DDMA is the honorable collector and district magistrate. He is the power who holds and he manage, and he's given the mandate to work on disaster management. So what it does, it ensures that the vulnerable areas identified within the district have a plan of action. It has also necessary measures, preventive measures, mitigative measures, and also develop a plan trying to find the hotspots as well as various key planning, contingency plans in resolving that. And also it has also way of like coordination, cooperation among different specialized trainings, and how he does. So there are different departments within the district. Each department officials are being picked up and they are being trained and made sure that their technical knowledge or their training help in managing disasters. So there are specialized trainings held at different level. Like when I was disaster management officer in Hingoli, I was sent to national level at the NIDM, National Institute of Disaster Management, where I studied the CBR and SOP. And when I came back, I prepared this plan for the districts. So this is how actually the knowledge propagation happens. And this actually role of DDMA, NDMA, and SDMA is in tandem with managing disasters. So officials are being picked up from different departments. They are sent to specialized training. Then when they come back to their original position, the DDMA is actually strengthened with people with having knowledge and understanding, and they are in a better position to manage disaster. So this is how this framework actually works. Then identifying building places, like when I was working in Aurangabad, we identified 3 talukas which are flood prone. Then based on that, we identified 60 villages which are more flood prone based on 2006 flood. So we had a plan of action. We also had a plan of evacuation, where to keep people during time of crisis, what can be done, what are the logistics required, what are the food system that needs to be set up, the collaboration between the CBOs, NGOs, and youth organizations, so that something happens, there is a proper cohesive way of managing it. So this is what the role of DDMA is, and stockpiling of resources, stockpiling of medicines, food, so that in time of crisis we are not short of anything, we are fully prepared. So the role of DDMA is to constantly being prepared and being able to respond to disasters in a more confident way, not in a way where it is very chaotic and confusion. And also there is the involvement of private sector, the NGOs, so they can pull in their resources during time of crisis, so that it actually resolves in a better way. And also, apart from that, clear communication from DDMA to the various stakeholders should be there, so that this actually helps to coordinate and management of disaster. Functions of DDMA in the event of disaster. So what it actually does when some certain hazard strikes, what DDMA or the District Disaster Management Authority does is firstly to give instruction, firstly take cognizance of the incident, what has happened, what actually went where, and how it should be managed through clear communication by the department. And not just there is a multiple communication from the national to the state to the district. So there need to be a clear framework of communicating such things. Then there need to be a control room that setups and that actually manages it with control room teams which are prepared, which are fully trained, and also manage how it is to be executed. And then if need arises, there need to be vehicular traffic needs to be controlled, there need to be instruction to be controlled. So various set of departmental heads that sit in these teams at the control room, they provide necessary instruction and facilitates the necessary actions to be taken. Then this disaster management authority actually swung into action when they are given all the powers to do it. So in terms of financial, as I said, there are two funds which are being created at the district level. One is the disaster mitigation fund and one is disaster adaptation fund. The mitigation fund is basically one which is used beforehand, wherein before disaster strike, pre-disaster, most funding is given. Adaptation fund is something which is a responsive fund, wherein response after the disaster, providing help. So these funds actually clearly demarcate in what manner the funds are being utilized, and this every district has that, so that they are in a better position to resolve the situation. Then also having necessary means it also being empowered to have a necessary facilities to channelize in terms of health, hospital management, and everything. They are also giving financial outlays for search and rescue, so that they are able to save people with their own requirement and equipment. Like in our case, when I was working with Aurangabad, we bought 5 boats which were placed at the 3 talukas which were mostly flood prone, and we placed those water boats specifically on the flood prone, because if that can be utilized in time, they can save lot many people's lives. And this is how the disaster management works in that way. Then also there are partnerships which are being forged between the NGOs, the CBOs, and it should be based on humanitarian grounds, not on discrimination. So that needs to be checked, and DDMA actually looks into the matter that everybody is being respected in this process of disaster management. Now the national plan. When we talk of national plan, the NEC, that is the National Executive Committee, prepares the national plan in accordance with the what national policy which we have adopted. It includes the preventive measures, mitigation methods. It includes the means of development, means of implementation, means of effective response, preparedness, capacity building. It includes all the things that needs to be there. And when it has to, it is more proactive plan. It actually incorporates all the best practices from all the past and learns from the past mistakes and past hazards and disaster impact. The national plan, and it should be reviewed. This plan which is being prepared at the national level is not a static, as I told. It is a dynamic one. So it needs to be going a long way of executing. So this review actually helps you, and it should be annually reviewed. You reviewed in the sense plan was developed, but just having a plan is not important. What way, what are things, what are new things which are coming up that needs to be incorporated in it, so that it needs to be updated well. And this plan actually is a roadmap for our disaster response. So appropriate provisioning and financial allocation is also must. So the different set of departments which work together in collaborative way it actually also need to have a correct financial mechanism of executing things, like the incident command system, which actually talks about management of any hazard or any disaster at the district level, the state level, and the national level, and how everything are being facilitated. Everything have been empowered to do so. This is what is being mentioned in the plan. This plan may be available to all the ministries and departments so that everybody knows that what are the mandates and what are the roles and responsibilities during a disaster, and what we should be doing in when it occurs. The responsibility of every ministry and department of government of India is actually fixed. They need to be coming up with their own plans and support not just themselves, their department, but the entire country, and how they can better facilitate. Like the atomic energy department actually has a plan, but once certain kind of situation occurs, they are actually seek their help is seek during the MHA Ministry of Home Affairs in managing this. So when specialized conditions happen, specialized department needs to come at the forefront and provide solutions. And when this happens, this is how disaster management propagates from different ministries. And every ministry has to have a plan. Every ministry has to have a nodal person who can be contacted during crisis and to get things resolved. Because the more time is wasted in communication and everything, actually it just wastage of golden hours, and loss of life will be more. So club down or reduce pre coordination, cooperation among different departments is crucial, and this plan has that. So the idea behind every ministry having its own plan is to the same, that there is no confusion within that department or the sector, and they are able to facilitate prompt action during time. It makes sure that to prevention, mitigation, preparedness, capacity building of disaster, carrying out rehabilitation, reconstruction. Every department has a role to play, and it needs to identify what they can facilitate during such things, and in what manner, how their resources, which are at different locations, they can be managed. And this is how it's all about the different department of government in that country. The functions of local authority. When you talk of municipalities, the urban local bodies and everything, they also have the role to play, because until unless they facilitate certain things, things won't channelize. And the government structure, as I talked about, there is the vertical structure that is top down. There is a horizontal structure among the city level. There is a municipal corporation. There is a district collectorate. There is a uh, urban local bodies. There are different uh, pollution control boards and everything. They need to also be having a good coordination, the cantonment boards and everything. So there need to be a horizontal management, and horizontal governance should be clearly defined. So they need to be involved, ensure resources which are related to disaster management maintained and available. All the equipment, like in the district level, we have district disaster management authority. We buy all the equipment, but when it buys the equipment, it makes sure that all these equipments are correctly placed at the correct place. They are usable. They are make sure they are maintained, so that during time of actual disaster, they are able to manage it and use it, so that it ensures all the proper usage of these equipment. And also there need to be specific standards that needs to be laid down and needs to be followed, so that the better way we move ahead to managing disasters is through collaboration and management. So this is how the local authorities can actually help out one another. Then, as I talked, like, there is a specific institute which is being instituted for training of all the officials. This not only trained officials, government officials, but also different set of stakeholders, people from a common man to NGOs, INGOs, students, academic, and everything. What it does is it runs all specialized trainings in specialized subjects, so that it empowers people to how to manage disasters. These are training from 2-day online course, 1-day online webinar series, to 5-day course with highly technical. For me, in my case, I would say that during my Hingoli tenure as a district disaster management officer, I was sent to NIDM for training course in CBR and emergency, which was highly specialized and very technical in nature. So I being nominated, so I went to complete this course, and actually this course helped me to develop Hingoli district standard operating procedure for CBR and emergency. So firstly, I need to understand what are these challenges. When I knew, I translated my knowledge, and when I came back, I prepared standard operating procedures for Hingoli district, which is now till today it's being actually as a document for guidance for that district. If something related to oil spill, a tanker spill or accident happens, and what different government machineries can do and what they need to enact, that was actually laid down in that standard operating procedure and helping them out in managing this disaster. So NIDM also promotes the research and in disaster management. They also study different countries. Then there is a knowledge exchange between NIDM and various international research institutes, JICA and all that. So there is a sharing of knowledge in terms of different disasters, hazards. Our people go there, get trained, and can come back. Their people come and train with us. So there are different scenarios. So this National Institute actually is a pivotal institution formed under disaster management. It's all about sharing of knowledge, networking, and also developing national level information base so that we are in a better position to manage disasters. Also documents well. It has a lot of uh, guidelines for different disasters and training personnel in enhancing their knowledge so that government entities are actually empowered and groomed well for disaster management. Then also it also have various functions like the seminars, workshop, like the national and international with public and international speakers involved in teaching. So this actually builds a culture of more holistic learning. And since we are learning, we also imparting. So in our case, country NIDM not only trains us, but also all the SARC nations which are around neighboring countries which we have. So there are people from Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and different countries who comes and there is an exchange. We train their government officials as well. This institute is pivotal in providing those. So the other highlight, the national disaster. We also, apart from this, we have a dedicated force to respond to certain specializing. As I told, there is CBR and emergency. So there is a national disaster response force which is having a 4 battalion at the 4 corners of India, and each battalion is highly trained to manage disasters. Even when Japan earthquake happened, so India was one of the country who provided a team for response and rescue for disasters, and it was highly appreciated by them because all these professionals were trained in handling the certain specific aspect of response and rescue in CBR and emergency. So Japan thanked India for this part, for having such force and uh, having such trained professional in managing disaster. So this is also one part of this event. And also this act not just talk about a framework where we are managing disaster, but also there is a stringent law which gives the power to the district administration or the collector who governs it to take action against people who found having certain misuse and offensive. So this is also having an if a government official fails to don't complete the requisite task, there are very stringent punishments which actually in this disaster management act is there, and also like spreading of rumors that is being punishable with law, misappropriation of money which is being disbursed to for certain actions if they are being misused, even that has a stringent law and it's non-bailable. So it's quite, and also this act has also one provision wherein things can be done and later on it can be converted into law post the action. So this is one of the most, and this law actually supersedes all other law. If it is a government act and then is the forest act or something which comes uh, against this, and this act actually cross boundaries with certain other act, so this act will be superseding all the other acts. So that much powerful it is, this disaster management act is. And the national authority prepares an annual report of activities, the trainings done. It also does trainings through training capacity building from the National Disaster Response Force, and it continues training year long so that, as I said, there is no static pro plan. It is dynamic, so you keep on changing and keep on refining. So this actually being funded by the government, and it has the long term of implementation. So this is how this plan is more robust, and it has actually solved a lot of challenges for related disasters. And the standards which has set, it has certain minimum standard like the sphere standards. It also have an standard where it follows the international mark, where things are to be done during hazard impact, that needs to be done in a correct way, following the minimum standards of requirement. And this is how this act actually provides a complete authority and complete framework where disasters can be managed. And when we look at the management of this disaster management from a individual perspective, it is also everybody's, like, as we enjoy the our fundamental rights, we are also having fundamental duties. So every citizen has a role to play in managing this disaster. And when there is a call given to manage disaster, we actually needs to be part of this process, and we need to help out. So with this, I will end my presentation for Disaster Management Act. So any questions? Any questions? Any questions?
No, sir.
So these are the two international treaties I taught. One is the Sendai Framework, and now this is the Disaster Management Act for the India.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Surprising. Yeah.
हाँ
Please
सर
go ahead.
आवाज येत नाही.
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
ओके सर.
Unmute
सर
yourself. Yeah.
सर एक प्रश्न विचारायचा होता. डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवलला जे डिझास्टर मॅनेजमेंटसाठी फंडिंग येत आहे तर ती कशी असते?
हाँ, तो the funding म्हणजे ती कशी आहे की like every district is being allocated one fund called disaster mitigation fund. Mitigation fund हा पूर्व तयारी फंड असतो, जो की प्रत्येक जिल्ह्याला दिला जातो. आणि पूर्व तयारी म्हणजे काय? ट्रेनिंग, कॅपॅसिटी बिल्डिंग. आता सपोज एक औरंगाबाद आहे, तर औरंगाबादसाठी डिझास्टर मिटिगेशन फंड मध्ये तुम्ही मदत पूर्व तयारी प्रोग्राम घेऊ शकता. तुम्ही रेडिओ जिंगल, स्टिकर, स्ट्राईक पोस्टर्स घेऊ शकता. म्हणजे you utilize those funds in managing the pre-disaster prevention preparedness aspect. मग पोस्ट डिझास्टर रिस्पॉन्स फंड पण आहे, जो की स्पेसिफिकली फॉर आपत्ती झाल्यानंतर त्याला तो त्या फंडिंगला दिली जाते. आणि तो फंड ऍक्च्युली स्पेसिफिकली फॉर पोस्ट म्हणजे मदत फंड असं असतो. हे दोन फंड ऍक्च्युली येतात आणि याला प्रत्येक बजेटला देयर इज अ फायनान्शियल आउटले दिला जातो. जसा while I was working, there was a fund which was given of 67 lakhs. I used it for buying 50 lakhs boots, and then part of it was for training, capacity building, आणि इन्फॉर्मेशन शेअरिंग अँड मॅनेजमेंट. या गोष्टीत तो फंड खर्च केला जातो. म्हणजे कम्युनिकेशन, जसे स्टिकर पोस्टर्स, पॅम्पलेट्स, बॅनर्स, बुकलेट्स. व्हॉट आय डिड वॉज, मी पॉकेट डायरीज बनवल्या होत्या प्रत्येक जिल्ह्यावाईज, तालुक्यावाईज, फ्लडच्या. आणि मग त्या पॉकेट डायरीमध्ये इन्फॉर्मेशन युजफुल लोकांची, की बाबा हु आर द पीपल हु आर एबल टू मॅनेज इट. तर ते त्यांचा पुरामध्ये चांगलाच फायदा झाला म्हणजे त्या गोष्टीचा. तर कसं की त्या गोष्टी म्हणजे हा जो फंड आहे, जर तो प्रॉपरली मॅनेज केला गेला तर याचे जे रिझल्ट आहेत का चांगले आहेत. आणि जो फंड येतो तो आता जे इक्विपमेंट आम्ही बाय केले त्याचं मेंटेनन्ससाठी पण, देखभाल दुरुस्तीसाठी पण यूज होतो. आणि कसं आहे की आपत्ती सांगून येत नाही, तर हा जो फंड दिलेला आहे, म्हणजे कलेक्टर हॅज ऑल द पॉवर टू युटिलाइज इट इन हिज ओन ज्युरिडिक्शन. म्हणजे असं रिस्ट्रिक्शन नाही त्याला की बाबा, पण हा एक गाईडलाईन्स अँड नॉर्म्स दिलेले आहे की त्या हिशोबाने त्यांनी खर्च केला पाहिजे बस. बट स्पेसिफिकली ऑन डिझास्टर, आपत्ती.
तालुक्या लेवलला कोणाचं कंट्रोलिंग असतं त्याच्यावर?
नाही, तालुक्याला तर इट्स लाईक कलेक्टर इज द होल सोल फॉर डिस्ट्रिक्ट. तालुक्याला
अच्छा.
तहसीलदाराला दिला जातो, तर हा जो फंड येतो प्रत्येक तालुका वाईज पुढे डिवाइड होऊन जातो, आणि दॅट वॉज गिव्हन. एक्झिक्युशनल पॉवर्स हे एक्सक्लुझिव्हली कलेक्टरचे असतात, कारण ही इज अ बॉस ऑफ डिस्ट्रिक्ट डिझास्टर मॅनेजमेंट ऑथॉरिटी. आणि तालुका लेवलवर थ्रू एड ऑफ तहसीलदार ते पैसे डायरेक्ट म्हणजे कलेक्टर त्या मार्गे तू खर्च करू शकतो, असं आहे.
थँक्यू.
मतलब कारण कसं आहे की आता बघा, इन हिंगोली डिस्ट्रिक्ट देर आर 5 तालुका, आणि इन औरंगाबाद डिस्ट्रिक्ट देर आर 9 तालुका. तर जिथं जिल्हे जास्त आणि जिल्हे काही जिल्ह्यांची म्हणजे तालुक्यांची मागणी पैशाची जास्त राहील, काही तालुक्यांची कमी राहील. तुम्ही औरंगाबादला आणि हिंगोलीला सेम फंड नाही देऊ शकत. वाय? बिकॉज तिथे तालुके ज्या प्रमाणे जॉग्राफिक लोकेशन, तर जर तुम्ही एक सर्टन अमाऊंट त्या दिली, तुम्ही ते सर्टन अमाऊंट प्रत्येक जिल्ह्याला नाही देऊ शकत, त्या जिल्ह्याच्या कंडिशनवर देऊ शकता. तर तसं आहे ते. मॅनेजमेंट शुड बी लाईक दॅट. नाही तर मग ते असमतोल होईल कसा.
तर एक प्रश्न असा होता, जर एखाद्या तालुक्या लेवलला किंवा ग्रामीण भागामध्ये एखादं डिझास्टर झालं, मोठी आग लागली किंवा पाण्याच्या पुरामध्ये वाहून जात आहेत लोक, पण तोपर्यंत डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पासून मदत येईपर्यंत बराचसा वेळ गेलेला असतो. तर त्याच्यामध्ये असे काही तालुका लेवलला अशी काही सुविधा त्यांनी पुरवठी दिली
आता
असते?
आता मी आय वॉज वर्किंग विथ हिंगोली. मी जसं जॉईन 2011 10-11, तर तिथं सेम सिच्युएशन होती. जस्ट लाईक मनसून पूर्वी तारीखची बैठक चालू होती. जस्ट आय जॉईन वन डे, एकच दिवस झाला होता. देन वी गॉट अ कॉल फ्रॉम अ प्लेस पार्टी बुद्रुक म्हणून. इथं हिंगोलीत तो मुलगा अडकला होता, तर नो बडी न्यू हाऊ टू रेस्क्यू इट. तर मग आम्ही व्हॉट वी डिड इज वी रन अन सर्च अँड रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन. त्यात आम्ही हिंगोली डिस्ट्रिक्टचे जेवढे रिसोर्सेस, जे अग्निशामक दल हे ते सर्वांना घेऊन आम्ही तिकडे पोहोचलो. अँड देन वी ट्राय टू रिझॉल्व्ह इट. पण ते रात्री उशिरा झाला, 11 वाजेपर्यंत, पण त्याला आम्ही वाचवले जातात. पण एकंदरीत व्हॉट वी डिड देन वी रिअलाइज की आम्ही तो वेळ, आमच्यापर्यंत बातमी केव्हा आली, 6 ते 8 तासानंतर आम्हाला कळालं की असं असं झालंय. तर दॅट वॉज वन पिटफॉल. तर मग आम्ही काय केलं की बाबा, प्रत्येक गावाचा आम्ही एक गाव आपत्ती व्यवस्थापन आराखडा बनवला, आणि त्याला लोक जोडली, म्हणजे जे गव्हर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल ऍज अन ऑफिसर ते डील करणार, म्हणजे ते त्या गावची इन्फॉर्मेशन आम्हाला सांगणार, आणि त्यांच्यावर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दिली की बाबा तुम्ही त्या गोष्टी करा. तर त्याच्यात आम्ही बघितलं की आता हे असं पूर्व म्हणजे फ्लड रेस्क्यू कथा, तर तिथं पोहणारे लोकांची एक लिस्ट बनवली प्रत्येक गावाची आम्ही, की बाबा कोण पोहू शकतात. जर बघा कुठली आपत्ती झाली आणि तो अडकला होता की झाडात, आणि ती ओढ्यात इतकं पाणी आलं की त्याला म्हणजे तो झाडावरच फसला, तर त्याला वाचवण्यासाठी मग आम्ही काय केलं की दॅट वॉज व्हेरी डिफिकल्ट. आणि त्याच्यात पाऊस झाला, म्हणजे चिखल पायाभर, आम्ही स्वतः अर्धा अर्धा पाय म्हणजे चिखलात जाऊन आम्ही तिकडे गेलो. तर जर असल्या टफ कंडिशन मध्ये तुम्ही रेस्क्यू नाही करू शकत ना. जर त्याला पहिल्या
बरोबर.
1 तासात वाचवलं असतं तर आमच्यापर्यंत ते आलंच नसतं, आणि ही वुड हॅव सेव्ह मच मोर. आणि त्याच्यात भाग्याची भूमिका घेणारे जास्त होते. मग आम्ही तेच डिस्कस केलं दुसऱ्या दिवशी, मी आणि कलेक्टर की जर वेळ राहिलं त्याला मदत केली असती तर ही ही वेळच आली नसती ना. देन वी डिड प्लॅन. प्रत्येक गावचा आम्ही गाव आपत्ती व्यवस्थापन आराखडा केला, प्रत्येक लोक घेतली. मग आम्ही जे ट्रेनिंग देतो, म्हणजे फ्लड रेस्क्यू असते, वेगवेगळे टाईपचे नॉट्स बांधायचे, कसं बांधायचे, याची ट्रेनिंग आम्ही फक्त त्या लोकांना नाही दिली, तर त्याच्यात अंगणवाडी सेविका, स्टुडंट, कॉलेज स्टुडंट, सर्वांना, की ही माहिती सर्वांनाच आली पाहिजे, की जर गरज पडली तर दे कॅन. मग त्याच्यात आम्ही फर्स्ट एडचं पण आम्ही ट्रेनिंग दिली सर्वांना, की जर काही कोणाला झालं तर तुम्ही स्वतःला तर वाचवा, मग दुसऱ्याला पण वाचू शकता. देन वी फोकस्ड ऑन दॅट. प्रत्येक गावचे प्रत्येक म्हणजे सरपंच, अंगणवाडी सेविका, वेरियस जे गव्हर्नमेंट एंटिटी असतात गावात काम करणार, तलाठी, ग्रामसेवक, यांचं पण ट्रेनिंग ठेवलं. म्हणजे फर्स्ट वी स्टार्टेड विथ आवर पीपल, बट देन वी गॉट इन्व्हॉल्व टू स्टुडंट्स, कॉलेज स्टुडंट्स आणि हे ते. तर त्याच्यामुळे कसं झालं की मग त्यांनी आम्ही रेस्क्यू टीम बनवली, आणि ते बनवल्यानंतर नेक्स्ट टाइम जेव्हा काही घडलं तर ते दे आर एबल टू रिझॉल्व एट दॅर ओन. जर त्यांच्याकडून नाही जमलं तर देन दे कॅन ठीक आहे हेल्प, असं आहे. आणि मग आम्ही
तर
गावची
येस सर, येस
विचार
सर,
करा, विचारा
एक
सर.
विचारायचं होतं, एक सेकंड सर. जसे गावामध्ये पोलीस मित्र म्हणून निवडल्या जातात, की जे पोलिसांना मदत करतात, तसंच असं काही रेस्क्यूसाठी मित्रमंडळ जर निवडलं आणि त्यांना ट्रेनिंग दिलं गेले, तर गाव पातळीवर सुद्धा आपल्याला
असं आहे, प्रत्येक गावचा ना जो आता जे म्हणतो ना विलेज डिझास्टर मॅनेजमेंट प्लॅन, विलेज डिझास्टर मॅनेजमेंट प्लॅन मध्ये आम्ही बचाव पथक पण निर्माण केली, म्हणजे स्पेसिफिक ट्रेनिंग पण दिली त्या लोकांना. म्हणजे काही लोक काही तहसीलमध्ये काम करतात, तहसील काही ग्रामसेवक, म्हणजे असलेल्या लोकांचा आम्ही एक चमू बनवला की बाहेर दे. आणि मग पास्ट पास्ट आपत्तीमध्ये कोणी कोणी काय केलं आणि कोणाचे काय स्किल्स होते याची एक आढावा घेऊन त्या गावचा आम्ही ते तसं प्लॅन बनवला. म्हणजे की उद्या काही झालं तर बाबा देईल. आणि मग एकंदरीत आम्ही काय केलं की अर्ली वॉर्निंग, म्हणजे जर मदतपूर्व माहिती जर तुम्हाला दिली तर तुम्ही स्वतःला वाचू शकता. तर आम्ही काय केलं की फोन नंबर सर्वांचे अटॅच केले, म्हणजे वेरियस सर्व्हिस प्रोव्हायडर्सचे, आणि प्रत्येक मोबाईलवर व्हॉइस कॉलनी आम्ही प्रोव्हाइड करायचो. म्हणजे जसा मान्सून पूर्व त्या गोष्टी आम्ही करायचो, म्हणजे अर्ली मॉर्निंग. तर लोकांना कसं त्या गोष्टी, आपल्याकडे जर मराठवाड्यात जसं औरंगाबादमध्ये आहे, तर इथं वीज पडून फार लोक मेली 2008 ते 2011 या वर्षात. ऑलमोस्ट 500 लोक मेलीत. का? तर ते शेतात काम करत होते आणि मॅक्सिमम स्ट्रायकिंग बिफोर रेनफॉल का वीज पडण्याने सर्वात जास्त लोक मेले. आणि सर्वात जास्त कारण एकच होतं की लोक झाडाखाली आश्रय घ्यायचे. पण दॅट वॉज नॉट करेक्ट, बिकॉज यू शुड टेक आश्रय मीन कव्हर अंडर ट्री, कारण मॅक्झिमम ती लाइटनिंग स्ट्राईक होती आणि मोर दॅन 10,000 वोल्टची स्ट्राईक असते. तर मग आम्ही जेव्हा तो डेटा आम्ही बघितला, तर संध्याकाळी दुपारी 3 ते संध्याकाळी 6 या दरम्यानच सर्वात जास्त लोकांची म्हणजे म्हणजे ते वारले बिकॉज ऑफ लाइटनिंग. तर मग त्याच्यावर आम्ही डूज अँड डोंट्स काय करावे आणि काय करू नये हे बनवलं. आणि ते लोकांमध्ये व्हाईल ट्रेनिंग लोकांना इम्पार्ट केलं की जरा तुमची शेताचे काम आहे तुम्ही लवकर करत जा, आणि जर असं काही असेल तर तुम्ही लवकर ते आश्रय ठिकाणी घ्या आणि लगेच म्हणजे मेक युअर सेल्फ सेफ. तर त्या गोष्टी आम्ही मग प्रोपोगेट केल्या. तर कसं की इन्फॉर्मेशन इज की, पण योग्य माहिती जर राहिली तर तुम्ही स्वतःचा पण जीव वाचवू शकता आणि दुसऱ्यांचा.
बरोबर आहे. सर, एक घटना अशी घडली होती. मी देऊळगाव राजा बुलढाणा डिस्ट्रिक्ट मध्ये राहतोय. तिथे एक कॉलनी होती. कॉलनीमध्ये एक शिक्षक त्यांच्या मिसेसला गाडी शिकवत होते आणि बाजूला एक अर्धवट विहीर होती, म्हणजे जी बांधलेली नव्हती, कन्स्ट्रक्शन नव्हती केलेली. पण त्या लेडीजने काय केलं, ब्रेक दाबायच्या ऐवजी एक्सलेटर दाबला आणि गाडी पूर्ण त्या विहिरीमध्ये जाऊन पडली. त्या गाडीमध्ये त्या शिक्षकाची मिसेस आणि मुलगी दोघं पण होते, म्हणजे 3 जण होते ते. आणि ते विहिरीमध्ये पडल्यामुळं ते मिसेस तर त्यांची वारली, पण जे वाचवायला गेले होते, जे हौशी मुलं म्हणतात गावातले, तर तो त्याच्यामध्ये गेला, तर त्याच्यामध्ये पण तो एक्सपायर झाला. तर अशा लोकांना जर असं काही इन्सिडेंट घडला, कारण तो मुलगा तर गरीब घरचा होता आणि त्याचं सगळं त्यांचं घर त्याच्यावर चालत होतं, तो मुलगा गेला, तर त्यांना असं काही इन्शुरन्स वगैरे असं काही मिळू शकतं आपल्याला?
हा, ते कसं आहे त्याच्यात बघा, आपत्ती म्हणजे इट्स इन कम्स अंडर रेव्हेन्यू डिपार्टमेंट, महसूल खात्यातच येतं. तर त्याच्यात जे आपत्तीचं देर इज अन आउटले की कोणाची अशी अशी म्हणजे बिकॉज ऑफ नॅचरल ह्युमन इंड्युस आली, तर त्याला तो फंड देतो. मॅक्सिमम 3 लाख 5 लाख काहीतरी आहे त्याचं राशी. पण ते
अच्छा.
ठरलेल्या नॉर्म्स म्हणजे जर त्या गोष्टी झाल्या तर. आता ही काय, दिस इज अन ह्युमन एरर अँड ऍक्सिडेंट. तर याला पण त्या आपत्तीने मोस्टली आपत्ती म्हणजे नैसर्गिकच हे कन्सेप्ट आहे. मूळचा तो ऍक्च्युली अपडेट झाला पाहिजे. बट धिस इज नॉट अन ऍक्सिडेंट, धिस इज अन ह्युमन एरर. त्यांना स्वतःला पाहिजे होतं की जर तुम्ही काही गोष्टी शिकता, जर तुम्ही गाडी चालवायला दिला आणि तुम्हाला माहिती आहे की आजूबाजू हे इफ शी इज ट्रेनिंग, तर तुम्ही पहिले सेफ लोकेशनला जा ना. ट्रेनिंग पण तुम्हाला कुठे द्यायची, तर म्हणजे कसं असतं की यू शुड बी नॉट जस्ट अवेअर ऑफ युअर सेल्फ बट ऑल्सो द एन्व्हायरमेंट अराउंड यू. आता तुम्ही एका पेट्रोल पंपच्या जागी राहा, म्हणजे यू शुड बी अवेअर दॅट इट्स अ रिस्की प्लेस. इफ समथिंग हॅपन्स, तुम्ही आहे का सेफ? सो यू नीड टू असेस युअर रिस्क. तेच म्हणतो ना, आपत्ती व्यवस्थापन म्हणजे आपत्ती आल्यावर आपण विचार नाही करू, पण आपत्तीच्या अगोदर काय आपण मॅनेजमेंट करतो, मेक आवर सेल्फ सेफ, दॅट इज मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टंट. आपण पहिले आपली आपली रिस्क, म्हणून म्हणतो ना मी की आय टॉक अबाउट रिस्क. रिस्क मीन्स आपण पहिले रिस्क इव्हॅल्युएट करतो का, की आपण कुठे आहोत, सेफ लोकेशन मध्ये का अनसेफ लोकेशन मध्ये. मग आपण स्वतःला पहिले सेफ आणि रिस्क फ्री करू, मग नंतरच दुसऱ्यांना तुम्ही रिस्क फ्री करू ना. आता इथे तुम्ही जो इन्सिडेंट सांगितला की ही वॉज दॅट पर्टिक्युलर पर्सन गिव्हिंग ट्रेनिंग टू हिज वाईफ, त्यांनी एवढं तर विचार करायला पाहिजे की बाबा आसपास काय आहे, आणि जर हिला मी शिकवतो मीन्स शी इज नॉट ट्रेन, चुकून काही पण घडलं तर यू शुड अँटिसिपेट द रिस्क ऑल्सो. म्हणजे म्हणजे खतरा है पर खतरे को म्हणजे पुढे होऊन असं पण होऊ शकतं हे अँटिसिपेशन पण पाहिजे ना. आता त्यांनी ब्रेकच्या जागी ऍक्सिलेटर दाबला म्हणजे दॅट वॉज बाउंड टू हॅपन बिकॉज शी वॉज ट्रेन, शी डोंट नो. तर ते जर पटांगणात किंवा सेफ लोकेशन मध्ये ते शिकवलं असतं ती वाचली असती बाई. बट ही ट्राय टू मीन्स ही ऍक्च्युली साईडलाईन जी रिस्क आहे याला तुम्ही डोळे झाक केली, त्याच्यामुळे दॅट हा ऍक्सिडेंट हॅपन. आणि जो दुसरा मुलगा जो म्हणजे विहिरीत उडी मारला त्यांनी, ठीक आहे स्पॉन्टेनियसली, पण त्याच्यात पाणी आहे का नाही, यू नीड टू हॅव द प्रेझन्स ऑफ माइंड. तुम्हाला मदत करायची मी मानू शकतो, पण तुम्ही पहिले स्वतःला सेफ अँड सेक्युअर करूनच दुसऱ्याला मदत करू शकता. नाही तर स्वतः तर दुसरं तर डुबायला लागला तुम्ही पण जाऊन डुबणार, हा ऍटिट्यूड कधीच नसतो. कधी डिझास्टर मॅनेजमेंटचा पहिला कन्सेप्ट हाच आहे की यू शुड नॉट जस्ट फर्स्टली सेक्युअर्ड युअर सेल्फ अँड देन ट्राय टू सेक्युअर्ड अदर्स. जर तुम्ही ते सेफ्टी म्हणजे आता कुठेही गेले तर तुम्ही डॅम कडे गेला किंवा कुठल्याही प्लेस म्हणजे रिस्की प्लेसवर गेला तर वाय देर आर इन्स्ट्रक्शन, बिकॉज देर आर मेंट फॉर यू टू मेंटेन अ सेफ्टी स्टँडर्ड. आता मागे एक इन्सिडेंट सांगतो. भोपाल असे पर्यटक फिरायला गेले आणि तिकडे म्हणजे इट वॉज अन कोर्स अपर कोर्स, आणि म्हणजे तिथं पाणी सोडलं नव्हतं डॅमला, पण हे लोक फिरायला गेले आणि त्याच्यात व्हॉट इन्स्ट्रक्शन वॉज दॅट काइंडली डोंट गो बियॉन्ड दिस बिकॉज एनी टाइम वॉटर कॅन बी थ्रोन फ्रॉम द अपर डॅम अँड इट कम. हे लोक म्हणजे ते फॅमिली आय थिंक 3 मुली आणि एक हजबंड वाईफ हे पुढे गेले आणि त्यांनी अर्ली वॉर्निंग दिली काही नाही आणि त्यांनी डॅमनी पाणी सोडलं. ते आले आणि पूर्ण ते पाण्यात चालले गेले. तर हु इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर दिस इन्सिडेंट? जी फॅमिली ज्यांना तो बोर्ड दिसला नाही किंवा तो बोर्डाचा सिरियसनेस त्यांना कळाला नाही की बाबा तुम्ही याच्या पुढे जाऊ नका, कारण इथे पुढे असल्या गोष्टी होऊ शकतात, पण त्यांनी दे डिडंट व्हॅल्यू इट. तर त्याच्यामुळे त्यांचा जीव गेला. 5 जणांचे ते वाहून गेले मग, कारण डॅम वरती पाणी सोडलं आणि ते पाण्याचा फोर्स इतका होता की त्याच्यात ते आले कचाट्यात आणि ते वॉश्ड अवे. तर इथे म्हणजे आय मीन टू से याच्यात आपण काय शिकलो की जर देर आर रूल्स अँड रेग्युलेशन अँड नॉर्म्स आर मेड, जर तुम्ही त्या फॉलो नाही करणार तर मग यू हॅव टू बेअर द कॉस्ट ऑफ व्हॉट हॅपन्स विथ यू. कसं आहे
सर, सेम सिच्युएशन लोणावळ्याला मागच्या वर्षी झाली होती. हा. काही फॅमिली फिरायला गेली होती आणि अचानकपणे वरतून पाणी वाहत आलं. हा, ते मुलगा, मिसेस आणि माणूस हे सर्व वाहत गेले. ते सापडलेच नाही. नंतर 1-2 डेड बॉडीज मिळाल्या.
पण तेच ना, म्हणजे आपण हे बघा कुठेही कुठल्याही गोष्टीकडे जातो ना तर आपण गांभीर्याने ते लक्ष दिलं पाहिजे की आवी असेसिंग रिस्क. मी तेच म्हणतो ना, आपत्ती व्यवस्थापनामध्ये आपण रिस्क म्हणजे काय, तुम्ही जर रिस्कचा टोटॅलिटी कॅल्क्युलेट नाही करू शकला तर मग दॅट्स युअर फेलियर. जर तिथं बोर्ड होता तुम्ही या लोकेशन ह्या स्टेजच्या पुढे जाऊ नका, तरी लोक नाही ऐकणार म्हणजे काय, देन यू आर ऍक्च्युअली रिस्किंग इट. मग अँटिसिपेट एनिथिंग. आता तिथं ते गेले बियॉन्ड दॅट, त्यांनी वरतून पाणी सोडलं, डॅमचं पाणी आलं तर मग ते फोर्स नाही येतं, दॅट यू डोंट गेट अ फ्रॅक्शन ऑफ टाइम ऑल्सो, यू आर वॉश्ड अवे. मग त्याच गोष्टी तर याच्यात काय की यू शुड फॉलो रूल. आणि कुठल्याही नवीन ठिकाणी तुम्ही जाता तर एक स्पष्टपणे करायला पाहिजे की ज्या गोष्टी दिलेल्या आहेत डिस्ट्रिक्ट गाईडलाईन, दॅट नीड्स टू बी अंडरस्टूड अँड फॉलो. तुम्ही जर ते नाही करू शकला तर मग तुमचा जीव पण जाऊ शकतो. तो एक चुकीचा निर्णय इट कॅन कॉस्ट यू युअर लाईफ. आता बोट इन्सिडेंट जसं सरांनी जे सांगितलं की बाय त्या गाडी चालवत होत्या आणि ओपन विहीर होती पण त्यांनी ते गेलं, पण तुम्हाला माहिती आहे की तुमच्या बायकोला गाडी येत नाही तर तिचं रिस्क, ती काही करू शकते तर ती पडू पण शकते, हे अँटिसिपेट त्यांनी करायला पाहिजे होतं. म्हणजे एक तर तुम्ही सेफ लोकेशन मध्ये गाडी चालवली नाही अँड देन यू डिडंट इवन असेस की जर चुकून असं काही घडलं तर तिचा जीव जाऊ शकतो. तर दॅट्स व्हॉट इट्स इम्पॉर्टंट की वेन यू टॉक अबाउट डिझास्टर मॅनेजमेंट इट्स ऑल अबाउट रिस्क. तुमच्या आसपास जी रिस्क आहे याच्याबद्दल तुम्हाला माहिती पाहिजे. आता एक इन्सिडेंट आणखीन सांगतो मी की लाईक पुणा समथिंग आय थिंक इन साऊथ, आय थिंक हैदराबाद और कर्नाटका, एक एलपीजी टँकर तो झाला आणि त्याचं लिकेज झालं. पण प्रॉब्लेम काय झाली की नोबडी न्यू हाऊ टू रिॲक्ट टू दिस. आणि त्याच्यात कसं असतं की एलपीजी डेन्सर दॅन एअर, तर एकदम खाली असते. कोणीतरी एक गाडी आली आणि इट जस्ट हॅड अ स्पार्क, कोणीतरी सिगरेट लावलं तर इट गॉट बस्ट. तर काही गोष्टी जर तुम्हाला त्या केमिकल प्रॉपर्टीज माहित नाही तर यू शुडंट गो, यू शुडंट व्हेंचर आउट. एक एक्झाम्पल, एक मायापुरीचं एक्झाम्पल मी सांगितलं होतं मागच्या वेळेस. दिल्लीमध्ये एक कॉलेजमध्ये तो एक्सरे मशीन होता दॅट हॅड कोबाल्ट 60 विच इज अ रेडिओ ऍक्टिव्ह मटेरियल. रेडिओ ऍक्टिव्ह म्हणजे किरणे जे असतात ते वर व्हेरी लिथल अँड व्हेरी डेंजर. त्याला वाटलं काही सोन्याची वस्तू त्यांनी ते तोडलं आणि ते खिशात टाकलं. पूर्ण दिवसभर फिरला तो. नंतर त्याचा पूर्ण पाय सडला का? बिकॉज दॅट रेडिएक्टिव्ह मटेरियल हॅड सम प्रॉपर्टीज. इट स्टार्टेड टू करोड हिज स्किन आणि तो एका दिवसात वारला. तर द थिंग इज, ज्या गोष्टी तुम्हाला माहिती नाहीये तर माहिती करून घ्या. सो फॉर दॅट नॉलेज इज की अँड इन्फॉर्मेशन इज इम्पॉर्टंट. हाऊ वी युटिलाइज दॅट इन्फॉर्मेशन फॉर आवर सेफ्टी, मेकिंग आवर सेल्फ सेफ अँड अदर्स, दॅट इज मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टंट. तर कुठली गोष्ट तेच म्हणतो ना, आणि हे जग आता आपण म्हणतो माहिती तंत्रज्ञान, करेक्ट माहिती पण अँड ऑल्सो एज ऑफ डिसइन्फॉर्मेशन. म्हणजे योग्य माहिती पण असणे गरजेचं आहे आणि खरी माहिती असणे. तर माहिती असणे पण ती योग्य नसली तर इट्स लाईक हाफ नॉलेज इज डेंजरस. तर करून यू शुड बी व्हेरी अलर्ट व्हॉट यू आर लर्निंग, व्हॉट यू आर ट्राईंग टू सी. आणि कुठेही नवीन ठिकाणी तुम्ही जाता, यू शुड बी व्हेरी अलर्ट अँड यू शुड ऑल्सो अँटिसिपेट रिस्क, की बाबा काय घडू शकतं. वर्स्ट केस सिनारिओ तुम्ही इमॅजिन करा आणि मग देन त्याच्यावर रिॲक्ट करा. जर तुम्ही वर्स्ट केसच इमॅजिन नाही करू शकत तर मग देन दॅट इज नॉट डिझास्टर मॅनेजमेंट. दॅट इज जस्ट रिॲक्टिव्ह बिहेवियर जे आपण आजपर्यंत करत आलो. हा जो ऍक्ट आहे, जो आपत्ती व्यवस्थापन कायदा आहे, हा म्हणतो की तुम्ही प्रोएक्टिव्ह व्हा. प्रोएक्टिव्ह इन द सेन्स पहिले माहिती करा आणि ती माहिती तुम्हाला सेव्ह करेल. आता सपोज भोपाल गॅस ट्रॅजेडीमध्ये जे मिथिल आयसोसायनेट लीक झालं, त्याची एकच माहिती काय होती इम्पॉर्टंट, की जर तशी गॅस झाली तर फक्त रुमाल ओला करा, तोंडावर टाका, कारण ती गॅस मग तुम्हाला एफेक्ट नाही करत आणि यू कॅन ब्रीथ अँड यू कॅन जस्ट मूव्ह आउट फ्रॉम दॅट प्लेस. दॅट वॉज द बेसिक सिम्पल इन्फॉर्मेशन दॅट कुड हॅव सेव्ड पीपल्स लाईफ. पण कोणाला माहितच नाही, तर दॅट्स इट. ज्यांना माहित आहे दे सर्वाइव्ह, ज्यांना नाही आहे, ज्यांच्याकडे गाडी आहे ते त्या लोकेशनच्या बाहेर गेल्या, दे मेक देमसेल्फ सेफ, बट दे कुडंट. तर कसं आहे, माहिती इम्पॉर्टंट आहे आणि योग्य माहिती पण माहिती असली पाहिजे आणि त्याचा वापर योग्य वेळी करता आला पाहिजे. कोविडमध्ये पण, कोविड इज जस्ट लाईक थ्रू your infection was through your nose and everything, जो affected. पण तुम्ही जर स्वतःला सेक्युअर कराल तर तुम्ही स्वतःला वाचू शकता. तर बेसिकली करेक्ट इन्फॉर्मेशन आणि रिलायबल इन्फॉर्मेशन हे चांगल्या सोर्सनीच तुम्ही घ्या आणि त्याचा वापर तुम्ही तुमच्या आयुष्यात नॉट जस्ट मेकिंग युअर सेल्फ सेफ बट अदर्स यू कॅन युटिलाइज. तसं आहे. एनी मोर
सर,
क्वेश्चन?
हा सर, एक आणखीन विचारतोय. एक डिझास्टर असा झाला होता की आमच्या देवगावपासून जालना रोडला जाताना, जालना जवळ आहे, तर तिथे रोडला लागून विहीर होती. त्या विहिरीमध्ये 2 वेळेस कार पडलेल्या आहेत. ऍक्च्युली ती टीव्हीवर पण बातमी येऊन गेलेली होती. एक नाही तर 2 कार एकाच विहिरीमध्ये पडल्या होत्या. तर अशी आपत्ती जर घडली तर त्याला जबाबदार कोण? शेतकरी की गव्हर्नमेंट की B&C? कारण B&C ने बोर्ड लावलेले नव्हते, B&C ने तिथे कटघरे केलेले नव्हते आणि शेतकरी
नाही, तुम्ही म्हणता की ऍक्सिडेंट झाला, पण हु वॉज ड्रायव्हिंग द कार ओव्हर देयर? म्हणजे काय?
नाही सर, ड्रायव्हिंग करणारा ड्रायव्हरच होता, ड्रायव्हिंग करत होता. रोडला लागून, रोडला टच विहीर होती. त्या विहिरीमध्ये एका जणाची चुकी असू शकते, 2 जणांची कशी चुकी असेल? त्या विहिरीमध्ये पडले. एक तर त्या विहिरीला त्यांनी काहीतरी संरक्षक भिंत वगैरे करायला पाहिजे होती. ती जबाबदारी कोणाची होती? तिथं तर जीव गेलेत तिथे.
द थिंग इज, बघा, इफ वन ऍक्सिडेंट हॅपन मीन्स दॅट इज द लर्निंग स्टेज. ओके, वी नीड टू लर्न फ्रॉम दॅट. ते 2दा झाली म्हणजे दॅट इज नॉट अ मिस. दॅट नीड्स टू बी समथिंग ना. म्हणजे एक ऍक्सिडेंट मध्ये लोक वारलीत म्हणजे काय, काहीतरी प्रिव्हेंटिव्ह ऍक्शन झाली पाहिजे होती ना. एक तर कठडा बांधला पाहिजे किंवा बोर्ड लावला पाहिजे किंवा काहीतरी. ती जर जवळ असेल, आता जसं सेम फुलंबरीमध्ये झालं होतं, बानकिनोळामध्ये एक डायरेक्ट बस ड्रायव्हर एका बैलगाडीला वाचवण्याकरता त्यांनी बस पलटवली आणि त्यात बस वेंट इन द रॉंग डायरेक्शन आणि ती जाता जाता सरळ एका विहिरीत पडली. त्याच्यात 7-8-12 लोक मेले होते आणि ते पण ती बस एकदम त्या विहिरीत खोल जाऊन म्हणजे ऑन द स्पॉट मेली. बट दॅट वॉज व्हॉट, एका बैलगाडीला वाचवण्याकरता ते बस म्हणजे अचानक त्यानं वळण घेतलं. बट दॅट कॉल्ड अन ह्युमन एरर. बट द थिंग इज, काही गोष्टी आता कसं आहे की देअर नीड्स टू बी सर्कमस्टॅन्शियल चॅलेंजेस ऑफ. आता तुम्ही जसं म्हणता की एकाच ठिकाणी 2दा झाले, याचा अर्थ मग एक तर गव्हर्नमेंटने बी काहीतरी मेजर्स घ्यायला पाहिजे होते की त्याला कठाडा बांधा किंवा किंवा त्या साईडच्या लोकांनी पण एकदा माहिती म्हणजे एकदा माहिती आहे की दिस इज नॉट सेफ स्पॉट, तो आयडेंटिफाय झाला तर त्याच्यावर एक पार्टी काहीतरी लावायला पाहिजे, सो दॅट इट मेक्स. आणि फक्त दिवसात नाही पण रात्री पण अशा गोष्टी होऊ शकतात. तर त्यासाठी काहीतरी रिडीम और समथिंग लाईक दॅट असं काहीतरी करायला पाहिजे. सो यू कॅन ब्लेम
सर, माझा प्रश्न हाच आहे की हे ऑफेन्स कोणाचा आहे? म्हणजे शेतकरी आहे की गव्हर्नमेंट आहे?
when we say disaster management is whole of society approach, everybody आलो ना, तुम्ही मी आले ना, we are part of this system ना. तुम्ही फक्त म्हणणार, तुम्ही फक्त दुसऱ्यांना रिस्पॉन्सिबल ठेवणार, पण तुम्ही काय करता हे पण इम्पॉर्टंट आहे. तुम्ही फंडामेंटल राईट्स एन्जॉय करण्यासाठी तुम्ही बोलता की हा माझा हक्क आहे, मी करणार. आणि तुमची जबाबदारी पण आहे. जबाबदारी किती लोक करतात?
बरोबर आहे. त्या शेतकऱ्यांनी तरी काहीतरी करायला पाहिजे की ती रोडच्या लागून जर असलं, असे आणखीनही सर 3 ते 4 विहिरी अशा रोडला आहेत की जी जीवाला धोका देणारे आहेत. कारण बाहेरून येणारे लोक जे असतात त्यांना तर माहिती नसतं तिथं विहीर आहे म्हणून. अचानक ती गाडी
त्यालाच म्हणतो मग द अप्रोच ऑफ डिझास्टर मॅनेजमेंट इज प्रोएक्टिव्हनेस. आता तुम्हाला माहिती आहे की तिकडे घडलंय एक इन्सिडेंट, 2 इन्सिडेंट घडले. 2 इन्सिडेंट घडले म्हणजे एक पाठी लावून किंवा एक बांबू लावून काहीतरी तुम्ही म्हणजे दर्शवू शकता ना की बाबा दिस इज नॉट तर ते दुसऱ्याला दिसलं, ही कॅन टेक ऍक्शन. म्हणजे माझं म्हणणं आहे की जर तुम्ही चुका झाल्या म्हणजे असा इन्सिडेंट घडला तर त्याचं लर्निंग तुम्ही काय घेता, दॅट इज ऑल्सो इम्पॉर्टंट. त्या चुकावर आणखीन घोडचूक करता. इट्स लाईक दॅट. इट्स इम्पॉर्टंट दॅट. आणि तुम्ही ब्लेम नका करू बिकॉज वी आर पार्ट ऑफ इट. जर कोणी नाही करत, समबडी हॅज टू डू इट. जर आता गव्हर्नमेंटचे ऑफिसर ते गव्हर्नमेंट म्हणजे ते ऑफिसमध्ये बसलेले असते, ते थोडे बघणार आहे. दोज हु आर ड्रायव्हिंग दे हॅव द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. दोज हु आर देअर दे नो दे शुड बी मेकिंग प्रिव्हेंटिव्ह मेजर. किंवा एक कठडा बांधला पाहिजे किंवा 4 बाका किंवा लाकडं लावून त्याला विजवलं पाहिजे. दॅट नीड टू बी समथिंग. आता तुम्ही जर त्या गोष्टीचं बोधच घेणार नाही आणि देन वी स्टार्ट टू ब्लेम. प्रॉब्लेम तोच होतो गव्हर्नमेंटमध्ये पण. इन गव्हर्नमेंट ब्लेम वन अनदर, बट दॅट इज नॉट द वे ऑफ सोल्युशन. तसं तुम्ही सांगितलं 2दा झालंय म्हणजे याचा अर्थ एकदा चूक झाली पण त्याचं तुम्ही काही यू डिडंट लर्न फ्रॉम इट.
बरोबर.
टाइम आणि अगेन झालं म्हणजे तो दुसरा जीव गेला, तुम्ही वाचू शकला असता. बट नोबडी. बट हे का की ब्लेम गेम की बाबा तू केलं कोणी करत नाही. आणि देन थिंग्स हॅपन. तसं आहे. बरोबर म्हणतो आपत्ती व्यवस्थापन प्रोएक्टिव्हनेस इट्स ऑल अबाउट म्हणजे स्वयंस्फूर्तीने करून त्या गोष्टी केल्या पाहिजे. आणि रिस्क असेस झाली पाहिजे. म्हणजे रिस्क जी म्हणतो ना, इट्स ऑल अबाउट रिड्युसिंग रिस्क. म्हणजे मी कुठे आहे, माझे लोकेशन काय आहे आणि काय घडू शकतं वर्स्ट केस सिनारिओ, या गोष्टीचं अँटिसिपेट करून तुम्ही ते तयारी केली पाहिजे. दॅट इज व्हॉट इज डिझास्टर मॅनेजमेंट. आणि यू हेल्प पीपल रिस्पॉन्सिबल, दॅर इज नो डाऊट. पण कसं असतं की त्यांचे पण लिमिटेशन तुम्ही बघा की टू व्हॉट एक्सटेंट दे कॅन. आणि ऑफकोर्स एव्हरीबडी आता आपत्ती व्यवस्थापन काय सर्वांवर रोज आणि रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टाकतो, पण त्यांनी त्याची जबाबदारी आहे त्यांनी केली पाहिजे. त्याच्यामुळे कारण जबाबदेही ऍक्च्युली हा कायदा हाच सांगतो की बा काही जर झालं तर ह्या गोष्टी जो रिस्पॉन्सिबल त्याच्यावर कारवाई होईल असेल. पण माझं म्हणणं आहे की प्रोएक्टिव्ह अप्रोच ठेवा आणि तुम्ही स्वतः लर्न करा. माझं काय म्हणणं की व्हाय यू एक्सपेक्ट अदर्स टू डू, वी शुड डू इट. दॅट्स ऑल.
थँक्यू सर.
एनी मोर क्वेश्चन्स? हॅलो अनुभव, कोणाला आणखी प्रश्न असेल तर सांगा. यू कॅन आस्क मी.
Anybody has question? Then can I go for a vote of thanks?
Yes. I don't think so. There is some. काही प्रश्न असेल तर विचारा. काहीच प्रॉब्लेम नाही. मे बी अबाउट एनिथिंग. Anyone who wants to express his views, he can share it.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
I just wanted to express my views. There has been a remarkable work which is done by the Orissa government regarding the cyclones. And initially they had, I mean, it was striking that state for a long time. But last couple of years, we are seeing that there is not much disaster is affecting the human being. We are able to evacuate the people on time, and we are taking necessary action and all. So, not just the cyclone alone, can't we use the technology the way Orissa government has used for other disasters also? It is somewhere very, very limitations because of lack of time and all, I understand, but still can we have some uh, active disaster management plan if at all the government has some?
Exactly. Actually, this Disaster Management Act actually mandates every state government to be proactive. Why Orissa is more successful? If you if you know, like I told, like illustration of 1999 super cyclone Orissa, where more than 10,000 people lost their life. So once a state faces such kind of thing, they are more sensitive towards it. So then they decided to build more robust early warning system. If, as I was told, the early warning, if given, it can save at least 30% of people's life if it is given on time, so that they move to safer location. So Orissa state being more coastal area and facing so much, so they developed the early warning system. They also developed the shelter system. They did it more remarkably, and during Haiyan, so this they evacuated more than 7 to 8 lakh people within 4 or 5 days. So that much capability they have developed. Why? Because they are sensitized. Because they have faced. Before that, any and I seen, like when any state, any location faces some deep impacting hazard, that remains in their mind more. So then they want to do it. But that is, and we are actually having a reactive approach. We need to have a proactive. But proactiveness comes when we have the intensity to work on it and do it correct. After like in Maharashtra, earthquake were never being thought of, but after Latur earthquake, everybody's seriousness was given. So this is how preparedness comes in and seriousness comes in. Then we come to कसं आहे, जोपर्यंत means as long as it doesn't strike you, you won't do it. But once you are affected with it, then you will, because then you are more sensitized. And also, as I said, like we are actually advancing in a more better way. But the piece of information, the information which you are getting, is it from the right source, the right person, and right knowledge? Or it may be also, this is an age of information, but also an age of misinformation. Are you getting? Because there are like n number of videos, there are social influencers who are spreading any whatnot by whatever. But are we able to know that what authenticity he has, what authority he has, whether he has the capability to say something? So for that, you need to understand who are the correct people, who are the scientists who work on these fields for so many years, and who is telling what and what correct way. Because until unless you get correct advice, you will not do it correctly. So we also need to also verify the source of information which you are getting is correct or not. So disaster management is a very vast field. It has multi hazards, multi approaches, and different dimensions, and also there are innovations which are happening at the international level. So we are not just having that current information or past information, but the new information also we need to be aware. Once you pass out from your graduation, how many people are that much interested in what's happening in your field, what you have learned? Nobody. You get a job and that's it. But we need to have that habit, to making continuous learning. And this is an era of continuous learning. So the more you learn, the more you are more understanding what past things were, what current things are, what the future will be. So one needs to be very more focused towards learning. And in this era of continuous learning, we need to have correct source of knowledge also. Not like, now YouTubes and, Instagrams, people are saying anything, and this is just waste of time. You should also know, you should get an advice of a scientist. Like in COVID-19, you were following WHO's norm, not any person who says anything, because they are the authority, they are the best, and they know what, and they were actually disseminating the correct information. So for every aspect of hazard, disaster management, you need to know who are the correct people I should go and what I should want. That's
Correct.
how, yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Anyone else? There is a power video from my side. So, anyone else who has a question or want to say something? So I think we shall conclude then. Actually, I have just a power failure, so I hope that you all enjoyed, and whatever doubts you have, you come. I try to redress it, and hope today's lecture you understood well the framework. Actually, it was long, so I hope that yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Participant is going to say vote of thanks.
Okay,
Yes,
okay, no
sir.
worries. Yeah, please
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I'm roll number 58. Good afternoon, all. On behalf of organizing team of UGC HRDC, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, and all fellow participants, I, Dr. Sumitra Nikam, Assistant Professor, Department of Geography, SP College, Pune, would like to express sincere vote of thanks to great personality and resource person of this session, Honorable Tushar Pradhan sir, Officer of District Disaster Management and SCRI Manager. Sir has explained in detail Sendai framework for disaster risk management in first half of his lecture. And in second half, he has explained about Disaster Management Act of Government of India 2005. He has explained the involvement and responsibilities of different stakeholders in different risk management, in disaster risk management. He has also introduced goals and targets of disaster risk management. I feel very proud and I'm very much thankful to HRDC BAMU and Dr. Chauhan sir to give me an opportunity to express vote of thanks to well-known personality, responsible and sincere officer, Mr. Tushar Pradhan sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all. Hope you enjoyed my session. And if you have, I will share these slides so that you can have it and go through it. Yeah. So thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Hello?
हॅलो. हॅलो.
बोला.
हा, मीटिंग लिव्ह करायची का?
हॅलो, मीटिंग लिव्ह करायची का? हॅलो.
करा ना मग सर.
हॅलो, मीटिंग लिव्ह करायची का आता? हॅलो. हॅलो तुपारे सर, मीटिंग लिव्ह करायची का? हॅलो.
ग्रुप मेसेज आलेला आहे की मीटिंग 2 वाजून 60 मिनिटांनी चालू होईल, म्हणजे 3
हॅलो मॅडम,
वाजता.
शीतल मॅडम,
हा, तोपर्यंत बंद करायचं का?
मीटिंग लिव्ह करायची.
हा, ग्रुप मध्ये लिहिलेलं आहे की 2:50
हॅलो.
मिनिटाला ग्रुप परत जॉईन करा.
ओके ओके, ठीक आहे मॅडम.
हा, येस सर, या मीटिंग इन द आफ्टरनून. चला भेटूया.
हो. बाकीच्यांना बोलवलं होतं नाही. येता या बोलवा बोललेत. हा, जयेश पाटील सर. हो का, झालं प्रॅक्टिकल, खाली बसले ते.